You're listening to Brave Girls with Tracy Imm, where we choose to empower you to be a better leader, mentor, and coach in the world. We'll share stories of people who have achieved great heights by overcoming adversity and rising to the challenge, all while pursuing their passions. These courageous people will inspire you to have faith in yourself and take bold action. Right here with the host of Brave Girls, Tracy Imm.
Episode 14, Surrender to the Truth with Elaine Wellman. On this episode of Brave Girls, I chat with Elaine Wellman, a Louisville, Kentucky native who's now living in New York City. I first met Elaine 5 years ago in a group mastermind, and we have so many of the same interests, from public relations to personal growth and development, as well as international travel. She tells the story of her move to New York after college and her life as a PR agency gal for 15 years. She then spent 10 years supporting French clients doing upscale trade shows and exclusive events in New York and Monaco. Elaine is a certified coach, and she talks about the investments she's made on her journey. Fast forward to today, and she's a full-time entrepreneur focused on supporting others with event planning, to include producing one-day workshops, multi-day conferences, and transformational retreats in places like Costa Rica and Tulum, Mexico. Elaine handles the details like a pro, so the leader can show up and serve their people without having to worry about things like, we have no more coffee. She provides some tips and tricks if you're thinking about producing an event for your clients. She also understands how to market and sell events, and we talk about how to fill the room. She shares her perspective on the importance of having an engaged community over a large list size before you decide to plan an event for your clients. We talk about the value and power of masterminding to share with other entrepreneurs as you grow your business. You can always go farther when you have these spiritual running buddies in your corner. Elaine tells the story of how she surrendered to the truth and what happened as a result as the universe rearranged things for her. I know you'll love Elaine and what she has to say on this episode of Brave Girls with Tracy Imm. So welcome to Brave Girls with Tracy Imm. Today I have the unique pleasure of interviewing Elaine Wellman from ElaineWellman.com. So welcome to the show, Elaine.
Thank you, Tracy. It's great to be here. I'm excited to be on your podcast.
Thank you. Thank you. So Elaine and I go way back. We met probably 5 years ago or so in a group coaching program. And it turns out Elaine and I have a very similar background. A lot of the things that we are both interested in include things like PR, event planning, coaching, masterminding, personal growth and development. The list kind of goes on and on and on. So Elaine, I know that you grew up in Kentucky, I believe, and you have a communications degree from the University of Louisville, but you now live in New York City. So how did a little girl from Kentucky end up in the big city?
Yeah, okay. I always knew that I would leave and go somewhere. And I joke that, I'm grateful that I'm from the biggest city in Kentucky. I'm from Louisville, if I say it properly. I usually say Louisville because people stopped knowing, they didn't know what I was saying when I said Louisville, but that's how you say it. But so I kind of always knew I would go somewhere and leave, but I didn't have like a grand plan. I don't think I had it on my radar that New York was possible. It's the big sparkly city. It's on TV. Movies are there. People don't actually really go there, do they? But I did major in communications in college with a focus in public relations. And when I was in college, a friend of mine, I became friends with a guy that was a couple years older than me. And when he graduated, he moved to New York. And I was like, oh, people can do that. Okay, And he was an aspiring fashion designer. And I actually started supporting him, doing public relations for him while I was in Kentucky. He came back to do a couple of fashion shows there. And we just really clicked on the work level. We weren't great friends at that point. We just were in the same group sort of. And we really clicked. And I came to visit him in New York. And the second time I came to New York, to visit him. He was in a fashion design competition, which he won. And we went to like the office where he was working on 7th Avenue for another designer to write a press release about him winning on Saturday, the day after, you know, and he just looked at me and said, "You need to be here now." And I said, "Okay." And I just knew that was the right thing. And of course, it's the mecca of media, so it's where the PR game is, and especially, you know, these are the days before social media, so even more so probably than now, as far as like if you were in the PR game, it was just kind of the place to be. So it lined up that way too. And a couple of months later, I moved.
Wow, that must have been scary to just leave what you know and just start fresh. But I guess you were young enough that it was easy to take a risk.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I will never forget the day that I left, you know, crying. I was crying, leaving, you know, saying bye to my parents. But it was just really, really exciting. And, you know, it was definitely challenging. But some people, when they hear that, I think they picture, you know, barefoot on the hillbilly farm in Kentucky to the big city kind of thing. But, you know, I didn't live in that environment, A, and B, I had been here before. So I had a clue, you know, I thought I had a clue what I was getting into. Maybe I didn't, but, you know, it's not like I'd never been to New York. So, yeah, it was good times, and it was great. His partner was a makeup artist, and so I was like the Barbie doll, and they would do me up, and we would go to the clubs and get whooshed in the red velvet rope. So we thought we were very fabulous. It was really fun.
That's funny. That's funny. Well, and you're still there many years later, and you continued to work in the field and, you know, work in sort of the agency world and deal with consumer brands like Sunbeam and Motorola and others. So what was that like, leading a team and, you know, just being so young and living the dream, really?
Yeah, I mean, it was really exciting. And the first PR agency that I worked at was a really special place. And I'm still friends. I mean, this is, you know, decades ago now.
Mm-hmm.
I won't say the exact number, but I'm still friends with several of the people from that company. And it was a very small creative company. And we actually had a lot of toy brands, which was a really fun, those were really fun accounts to have because you could be really creative. And we also represented the World Trade Center on the entertainment side and introduced them. They had a 5-acre plaza that they used for nothing, like ever, except people walked across it to get to the buildings. And you know, we said, hey, you should do entertainment here, free lunchtime concerts and holiday stuff. And so the company that I worked for started that. So we did those kind of events. So it was the pieces of that that I worked on at that company were really fun especially for somebody young, you know, starting out and cutting their teeth, you know, in the PR world.
Right. And I think that's even led to where you are today, where you do events for both entrepreneurs and for corporations. And that's a whole nother skill set that a PR person can take on. And so talk a little bit about the types of events that you do now for people.
Yeah, well, first I'll just back up a little bit and say, you know, so I was in public relations at a couple of different agencies, probably for about 15 years, you know, working my way up to VP of a consumer group. And then I made the switch to events, specifically, very event focused, and did that for 10 years plus. And at a very specialized company that the owner was French. And so most of the clients were French doing events here in New York. And that included upscale trade shows where we organized the entire trade show. And that I really liked that. And because, you know, there's many elements. I mean, we even selling the booths. I didn't personally work on the sales piece of that, but selling the booths, dealing with the exhibitors, answering other questions, dealing with the visitors. I would do all the marketing and, for the visitors to get the traffic to the trade show, as well as all the event production pieces. And we had fashion trade shows, we had children's, products trade shows, we had beauty trade shows, actually I should say packaging trade shows that focused primarily, the biggest customer that is the beauty business, because there's so much that goes into beauty packaging, beauty product packaging. And that's when I I joked, like, the awful experience of having week-long business trips to Monte Carlo every year. I joked, oh yeah, it's really bad. It's like those one-day business trips in and out of Chicago, or it definitely wasn't that. So that was really exciting and a lot of fun. And I just really love events because, they have a start, they have the process of getting it all together, and then you actually see it come to life, which when you're doing straight public relations, sometimes it's more vague, that you don't get that crystallized final, this is it, and then it's over. And it's done and you start again, or it's clean slate. So that's kind of the background. And then along the way, I also got certified as a coach and had a coaching business for a while. I kind of tried all the things I felt like and did all the things, and with my own blocks, didn't get where I wanted to go with that. And have now shifted into events and retreats, transformational retreats, as my business. And so I still do the corporate events and the black tie galas and that kind of stuff, but my heart is also really within this coach, healer, entrepreneur space, and supporting those transformational leaders with their events and their retreats, around the world. And I mean, you and I were together at a retreat in Tulum, Mexico, which, how awesome was that?
Amazing.
Yes.
And Costa Rica.
And, I really, and that brings in, like you mentioned earlier, both of our loves of the personal development. And that really, marries the deep personal development work, with the travel, with the event. So now, I love supporting leaders around that and helping them, handling all the details and taking the stress out of the planning. Events can be, and typically are, very stressful because there are just a lot of details. And I take the stress away so that the leader can show up and fully present, not worrying about the little stuff like lunch and coffee and, the AV and all the other things, and really serve their people. And whether that's a retreat or, a 2-day live event or a conference or, so many different things it could be, but that's what I'm focusing on now. And I really do love it.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, I think sometimes people think as entrepreneurs or coaches as entrepreneurs that they can do it all, and they're really doing a disservice to their clients by trying to be that one-stop shop, whereas your zone of genius and your background is the event and the experience, because that's really what they're giving to their clients, is that transformational experience. So I think that for people that are out there that may have a business where they're thinking about doing a live event, multi-day event, or they're thinking about doing a retreat in a different location, whether it be in their hometown or that it be in Costa Rica or Tulum or Bali or California or wherever it's going to be, that bringing somebody in to help them with the retreat is really going to be helpful. And there's things you and I've talked about with, if someone were to hire you, it's thinking about the budget, thinking about pricing, thinking about the contract terms, thinking about what you're going to include in that. So talk a little bit about the types of things that you walk your clients through when they come to you and they say, okay, I'm ready to hire you, but I don't know where to start.
Yeah, I mean, and there's kind of two phases to putting together an event. There's the glamour and the excitement and the vision, and that's the fun, sexy part of it. And where people get into trouble is not walking through the back end of it. And, especially on retreats, There's a lot of coaches that want to lead retreats and just dive in, which on some actions that can be a great way to go. But there's a lot of costs with events and retreats. And so you really do need to do the research in advance and work the budget and run the numbers and know what it's going to cost you. And on a retreat, for example, you want to do that so that you know what it's going to cost you if you sell 6 spots, if you sell 10 spots, if you sell 12 spots, whatever your numbers are. I'm just making up numbers, but so that you know, because you say you want to get 10, but what happens if you get 8? You don't want to, lose money because you didn't sell those last 2 spots. So when you work through your budget in detail in advance, you know what all of that looks like, and then you can price the retreat from there, as opposed to saying, I think people will buy it if I price it at $1,000, so that's what I'm going to do. And then you sell it, and then you realize it's costing you $1,400 per person or $1,200 per person or whatever. So that's especially important for new retreat planners to keep in mind. And the other thing I just wanted to mention, because you said sometimes people think that they can do it all. And, I totally know and understand what it's like to want to do some of these bigger projects, yet have a limited budget. And there are ways to do certain things on a limited budget. And there can also be, it might also just mean that it's not time for you yet. If you think you want to put on an event, but you really don't have any idea how to do it, and you don't have any budget, then have people over to your home. Start there, start smaller, because when you go out and produce an event, it does cost money, and you do need to also have people on your list or in your community that you feel are going to want to show up. That's another thing I see, especially with coaches that want to do retreats, but they've just started, or maybe they've been in business, a year, and they don't have a big community. You have to have somebody to sell it to.
That's a good point.
Before you should put it out there. And and you also need to give yourself plenty of time to plan. So you can start your planning and build your list in the meantime, because you want to give yourself plenty of time, but you can't just be out of the gate and not have anybody in your tribe. And, it's going to be very challenging to get people there if that's where you are.
Is there so if somebody was, they have a relatively large community or tribe that they want to invite, is there, in terms of sales lead time, planning lead time, and I know it would depend on the type of event that you're going to have, but say it's a 2-day workshop that you're going to have, and maybe you're going to rent a hotel and bring people into a ballroom, which, that's one type of event.
Mm-hmm.
How much lead time do you usually advise somebody have before they just say, okay, that's my date and I'm going to start marketing it, and I got to get 40 people there?
I think it always goes back to who are you getting in the room, because if your tribe is local, you don't need as much time as if your tribe is all over the country or all over the world and you want them to travel in, 90% of your tribe is local, then you could do it in a shorter amount of time, because people just need to block out the 2 days. They don't need to block out 4 days because they're traveling, and they don't need to buy airline tickets, and they might have to deal with childcare or whatever, but they're going home at night, right? So that's a totally different thing. So, if you were doing local, I would still give yourself, ideally a couple of months. And that's to market it. So that means that you have to have done all the work to the point to be able to market it, which means, you have the venue, the cost, you've done the sales page. You don't have to know exactly what you're going to present exactly. Like, that's the easiest part. People think they start there, but that's the easiest part. You need to know your main points So you can tell people what they're going to be learning or experiencing, but you don't have to have every script and all your handouts and all that stuff done yet, but you need to have it crystallized enough so you can talk about it, and then give yourself time so that people can clear their calendar. Even if they might really know immediately they want to go, but they've got to get it in their calendar, And I was at an event yesterday here in New York, a one-day event, and the main speaker, you might know of her, Tracy, Monica Shaw, she's a big money mindset. Revenue Breakthrough is her brand. She's a coach, and she was offering a 3-day event in September. So this is was her pre-sale, because this came off of a live talk. I don't think she's put it out, to the world yet, but, and we're talking today, it's June 17th when we're talking. So that was a good 3 months,
Right.
3 months for her pre-sale kind of early bird deal. And if you think a lot of people are going to be traveling in, then you want to give them even more time. And there, I think it still depends on how long is your event. If it's a 2-day conference, you don't need as much time as if it's a 6-day retreat in another country and most of your people are in America. That's a bigger deal still, right? So,
right.
If they're going to be flying, basically the earlier you can start, the better. There's no harm in starting early, but you should know people buy last minute. So, you're going to put it out there and then they have to figure out if they can get there or not. So they're not going to necessarily buy up front, but it doesn't mean that they're not coming. And that's where you have to tap into that faith and keep putting your messaging out and keep working on the marketing.
Right. So, and I know a lot of people will offer early bird pricing that will end at a certain point. I know some pricing tactics are bring a friend, buy one, get one. So there's things that you can do to fill the room, get butts in seats, get people, you can do an event that's part of a program. I see a lot of coaches that will do, as part of this coaching package, you get a 2-day retreat that includes an overnight stay and maybe a resort for a night. And those are pretty popular as well. So,
and it's also important, just to back it up even a little bit, is to start with what's your goal for the event, because there's also high ticket. Let's take that 2-day event in a hotel, concept. There's high ticket events, what you would call high ticket events, where you're making money on the ticket sales. And then there's also the model that the event is not high ticket. It's a lower price point because you're going to sell something. You're going to offer something at the end of the event, and you're expecting that that's where you're going to make more money. So you might not make much on the event itself. On the ticket sales might not even cover the cost of the event, but then if you sell 5 packages at the end or whatever, then you've made more than the event cost, and
you've filled you filled the pipeline with people who are serious about working with you in either private capacity or a group capacity. And there's a whole methodology, I know, to making that offer from the stage so that it's not an icky salesy feeling, that it's more the person knows, likes, and trusts you already because they've come to your event, you've given them valuable content, and now they're like, you've triggered something in them that says, I'm missing something, and you're the answer to what they're missing, and you're going to be able to help them with that transformation. So
exactly.
And I think the fact that you've gone through IPEC training and you've been through a coach training, and you understand the coach world, and the fact that you're working with different people in their coach training schools and things of that nature, that's got to be differentiate you a little bit from just any old event planner, because the marketplace, the space that they're operating in. You yourself have gone to things and you've seen what's worked and what hasn't. And, at some point, you and I've talked about this, is like, we just have to stop buying stuff and implement, right?
Right. Yeah. One thing I like to say, Tracy, and thank you for mentioning that differentiation. I come in, I can plan events with my eyes closed at this point after all these years, but I come in with my eyes wide open because of that coaching lens, so I'm not the event planner that's just like waiting to turn the lights down when the PowerPoint goes on or whatever. I can read the room and see what's going on in the room and support the leader and hold space for the leader and help hold space for the group, on a different level than an average event planner. But to your other point, yes. Gosh, how many programs are in my computer that I haven't done still? I have a joke with a friend that we're going to like be in the retirement home together, going through the digital courses and things that we bought and never used or never implemented. And that was, one of the things that I did when I had my coaching business that probably hurt me was I really overinvested in all the coaching, the high level coaching and the programs and, stuff that I wasn't ready for, didn't need. And it is hard to know, like, are you ready for it? And do you need it or not? So,
well, and it's just like what you were saying about even like some of the coaches that may not have a big community, they're not ready it's not their time yet to have, to dip their toe into this next level. So how do you think people know when they're ready? They have a big enough community. They have people that are going to actually pay the ticket price and show up, buy the packages. They've kind of built that foundation. Is that really what you see?
Yeah, as far as events and retreats go, and it doesn't mean that you have to have 10,000 people on your mailing list, but you need to have an engaged community. I mean, if you have an engaged community of 100 people and they're all in your local community and you just know that 30 of them would show up for your workshop, then do it. That is amazing because you can have 10,000 people on your list and only 30 of them open the email, so it's not hardcore numbers like that. But you definitely need to have confidence that some people are going to show up, and on one hand, there's some areas that you need to be ready for it, and you also do need to be ready to take a leap, because if you wait until you feel completely ready, of course, then like you're ready for something else already and you're just not moving where you should be going to reach the higher level.
I do. Well, and it's funny because the other thing that it's like you have to have, it kind of goes back to PR, right? And knowing your audience. And so like you were saying about if you have like an engaged community of 100 people that are local and they're ready for a vision board workshop or, something of that nature that you can offer them at a price point where maybe it's a low price point, you cover your costs, but then you go and you sell them into something else. You continue to engage them on your email list. You continue to, put good content out, whether it's a podcast or it's a video or whatever medium you really like. But, I think the fact that you have that PR background, it's like you go back to who's your audience. And like you said at one point, what's your goal? What's your goal with this event? Like, what's the outcome you're trying to get? Is it more sales? Is it brand awareness? So, that's where the PR piece comes back in to knowing whether or not only did you either make money off the event, break even, or did you achieve that goal, right? And that's what you do with a PR campaign too, right? Who's your audience? Who are we targeting? What's the right tactic? So it's just layering in that through a live event, right?
Yes, exactly. And for people that are farther along or more experienced, or maybe if they're entrepreneurs now, but their corporate life like really mirrors what they're doing now, like somebody like you that has a strong background in all of these things, you can come out. It doesn't mean you have to go to your house first. Like you can come out of the gate because you have an understanding and you have the community and you have the skills, but if you're earlier in the process of your exploring your business, it's great if you could do some smaller things and test the waters and not spend a lot of money and experiment and have fun, and even, throw some posts out on Facebook or wherever you are. Hey, I might do this. Would you be interested? And see what kind of reaction you get. And, when I got out of coaching school, that wasn't what people were doing. Everything was supposed to look perfect, and you were supposed to like be this, untouchable coach
Have
up
no
on the
flaws.
pedestal, right?
Have
And
no flaws.
the
Don't have any
authenticity conversation had not started yet, and it's really different now, which is fantastic, and gives people more room to just like put the feeler out. And if 3 people say that they would come and you only want 6 there, well, hello, go do it. I'm sure you can get the 3 others. Those 3 might even bring friends, and put it out a couple of times. If you don't get response the first time, post it again. Maybe it was the wrong time of day, maybe whatever, but that you can do little things like that to kind of test the waters and get a sense of what your community is thinking.
Yeah. No, I think that you're absolutely right. And I think that what people connect with most nowadays with coaches is around that, when they allow themselves to be vulnerable and they allow themselves to share some of their story. Hey, I was really having a hard time with XYZ, or, so I think that if you try to project this uh, persona of perfection, it's not going to be authentic, and people are going to be like, I'm not really interested in that. The more raw and real,
Mm-hmm.
I think the better you're going to be served in terms of who you really are and who you're here to serve as a leader and as a coach. And so, so, and the other thing that I know that you're also a big believer in, as am I, and we've done a lot of masterminding over our time as friends, colleagues in the circle, as sisters. So how has that really helped you too, when you have these spiritual running buddies that you mastermind with?
Yeah, it gives me a sense of community, and it gives me that space to be vulnerable, because as much as we might be vulnerable, let's just say publicly, for lack of a better word, on social media or whatever, with what's going on with us, doesn't mean that we need to say everything to the world. But we do need
Correct.
a space, to share that we know is safe. And especially if you're an entrepreneur and your friends and your family, if they're not in that world, they really don't get what you're doing. And they're not, if you're a coach and they're not in the coaching entrepreneur world, I remember being disheartening initially, because like my sister wasn't reading every blog post I wrote. It's like, what do you mean you don't want to read it? It's not that she didn't want to, but they don't necessarily get what you're doing. So you need that community, and a mastermind can give you that, like an incubator space to really grow and share and figure your crap out, and often we think that we're going in there to focus on business, and then life happens. And, the masterminds that you and I have been in have given us the space. It was safe for us to go down that road with those groups as well, which is really important. And it can give you a level of accountability and just make you feel like you're not alone. Like otherwise you're just over there trying to do it alone and figure it all out by yourself. And nobody does it alone.
Right. Well, and there's some African quote, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go with somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think there's so much truth to that. And, when I think about, you lost your father, I lost my father. Today, when we're recording this, it's Father's Day. So you helped me a lot. I tried to help you, as we talk about our relationships with our fathers and the role that they played in our lives. And I think we both believe they're here with us now as we're recording this, and they're glad that we found each other as these PR event planning sisters. And so, it's so true that you don't want to go through life alone, and you really do want to go far. And you're gonna, you've given me so many ideas for my business and my journey, and I'm just grateful for that. And that we, kind of came together through luck, through the universe, however you want to say it. But so one of the final question that I always ask everybody is, what's the bravest thing you've ever done, and how does it inspire you today?
I have to think about this for a second. I think, and it's funny because you might get asked this question a few times during your life at different points, and so your answer may change. So I think the bravest thing I did was when I quote, surrendered my coaching business because it wasn't working. And that happened in the mastermind. I did not plan on doing it. We, the way it was set up, we had a Facebook group, and we prepped for our group call by just saying what's working and what's not. And I typed, "This isn't working." And I was like, am I saying that? And I hesitated, and it was the truth though, that I had not been facing. And, I published that, and it felt very freeing as soon as I hit the button. And then I just really surrendered it, and the universe started giving me shortly after that opportunities to do events. And it was kind of like, you might not really want to do this forever, but this is happening, and that led to me doing retreats, which I hadn't thought about doing before. And, but that moment, that was probably overdue. It was overdue for me to admit that. And, I loved the idea of coaching, and I know I did good work with the clients I had. And, it was just my own stuff that I hadn't worked through yet, and money stuff that I hadn't worked through yet, and overspending, like I mentioned before, on the courses and the programs and the things that I didn't need. And those were the situations that I had. But now it's like, yeah, let me do this. This is easy, So I think that's what I would say.
I love it. I love it. Sometimes the hardest thing is facing the truth and surrendering to what is, and trusting in the universe. And the universe rearranged things. And what you're doing today combines all of the things that you've done along your path that you're good at, that come easy to you, that allow you to show up as who you really are and not have to fake something. And so, hopefully some of our listeners will be inspired and think about what they need to surrender to and what truth they're not really facing. Because I think that pivot allowed you to go into a different direction, which is just you're blossoming, right? And you're so happy there. I just see the happiness. And so thank you so much, Elaine, for being on the show today, for sharing your story, for giving folks some little nuggets as they start to think about, should they be offering workshops, retreats, live events, thinking about who their audience is, thinking through planning, thinking about their goals, thinking about different pricing strategies, asking themselves if they're ready for it, making sure they have an engaged community, all the things that you've observed and learned over the years in all of the work that you've done at agencies, as a freelancer, as an event planner, as someone who's really committed to her personal growth and development. So, so if folks are looking for you, they can find you at elainewellman.com, and we'll put that in the show notes. And I just am so thankful that our paths have crossed and that you've been my spiritual running buddy and mastermind coach buddy. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Tracy, and back at you with all of that love too.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Brave Girls with Tracy Imm as much as I did creating it. Each show is produced with you, the listener, in mind, as you look for inspiration and motivation from other brave souls as you pursue your desires. I'd love to hear your feedback, so please leave me a review on iTunes. I read every one. And check out my website, tracyimm.com, for more free resources. You can also join my list and sign up for my newsletter right from the homepage. Until next time, stay strong, believe in your dreams, and go do something brave.
We appreciate you joining us for this episode of Brave Girls with Tracy Imm and hope that you enjoyed the show. For more information about today's episode, as well as additional free resources to help you achieve greatness in your life, visit tracyimm.com and sign up for our mailing list. Until next time, dream big, believe in yourself, and let your brilliance shine as only you can do.